Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to take any English word, add a simple ending to it to come up with a Russian verb. Take the word park, for example. If you just add овать to it, парковáть, you now have to park in Russian. Okay, that's not really true. You can't do that to any word in English, but they do it to a lot of words borrowed from English, other languages, and even their own. And while they look like first conjugation verbs because they end in the a, ten, yaki, znak, they don't conjugate like first conjugation verbs. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to correctly conjugate овать verbs. Давайте начнем. Всем привет, меня зовут Jared, я делаю русский язык легким. Hey everybody, my name's Jared and I make the Russian language easy. Wouldn't it be cool if you could take any word, add an ovát ending onto it, and then make it a real Russian verb? When I was learning Russian, the group of students that I was learning with, if we didn't know the verb in Russian, we would just take the English verb and tack on the ovát and, make a little joke out of it that way. Wish it was that way, but it's not so. But парковáть is a real Russian verb, and it does come from the English to park. It looks like it should be a first conjugation verb. And it is a first conjugation verb, but it's one of those ones that conjugates slightly differently. But it's really easy. There aren't a lot of exceptions. Okay, so let's take the verb парковáть. The first thing that we want to do is drop the ovát ending. Then we want to add on the Russian letter u, and then we conjugate it, first conjugation, as normal. So if you wanted to say he is parking the car, you would say он паркует, because the yete is the first conjugation ending for on. Not too hard, right? Let's do one more. Рисовáть, which means to draw. We drop the ovát ending, we add the u, and then we conjugate it according to first conjugation rules. So let's say I'm drawing. Я рисую. Okay, I'm going to give you another one here. I want you to try it. I'm not going to give you the answers. It's a pretty easy concept to master. I'm betting you've already got it. So let's use the verb стартовáть, which means to start, but usually used in starting events. And let's say we are starting, okay? So how would we correctly conjugate that? Here's the infinitive form or the verb without any changes. Стартовáть. What's the first thing that we do? Correct. We drop the ovát ending, and then we add the u ending, and then that's correct. We conjugate it as we normally would a first conjugation verb. Мы стартуем. Now that's for ovát verbs. There's also воевáть verbs, and those are very, very similar with one slight little difference. Instead of adding u, you add u. Okay, and that has to do with the hard and soft letters in the Russian language, and we won't get into that, but that's the reasoning behind it. So let's take the verb воевáть as an example. Война is war. Воевáть, that's the root there. It means to war, to make war, to be at war, things like that. So if we take воевáть, the first thing we do is we drop the yevát ending, so we just have va. Then we add the letter u, not u, but u, and then we conjugate it according to standard first conjugation rules. So let's say they are warring or they're fighting. Они воюют. Okay, it's kind of weird because we have to say они воюют. There's that two things there, but that's the correct way to say it. If you want to say he's warring, он воюет. Pretty easy concept, but with the воевáть verbs, there's one other little thing you got to remember. After the воевáть ending, or the last letter in the word after you drop it, ends in k, g, h, sh, zh, sh, ch, or ts. If the word ends in any one of those letters, instead of adding the u, you add the normal u, like you would in ovát. So let's take the verb танцевáть as an example, to dance. You see that it ends in воевáть, but after we drop the воевáть ending, it's got the ts ending at the end here. So rather than adding u, we're going to add u. And if we want to say she is dancing, we would say она танцует. Okay, two other little things that I want to point out here, and then we're going to be done. The first is the stress. Okay, and this is really easy. If you're familiar with first conjugation verbs, and I haven't really taught this yet, we're going to be doing that in future videos. So by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure and do that because we've got a lot of great content coming out. But some first conjugation verbs, the stress shifts all the way around. It's here in the ya form and there in the on form and all of that. We don't have any of that malarkey going on here with ovát and воевáть verbs. It's pretty nice. If the verb in the infinitive form, meaning before any changes, is on the ending there, on the ah, it's going to fall on the ending in the conjugated form. And if it comes somewhere else in the word, like at the root of the word or not the ovát ending, it's going to stay in that same place once it's conjugated. So take the verb rисовáть, for example. You can see that the stress is on the a here, but when we conjugate it, let's say that we are drawing, мы рисуем, you see how the stress stays on the yem. But if we take the verb трébовать, to require, you can see the stress is on the ye, and so it's going to stay on the ye in the conjugated form. On требует. Last thing to know about овать and јевать verbs is, and this is if you're a little more advanced and you already know what a reflexive verb is, but if you don't, it's fine. But sometimes there are verbs that end in ovát and then have the reflexive ending. That's just the suya. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Just know that when you conjugate them, you follow the same 4 steps that we did before. Drop it, add the u or u, and then conjugate it according to normally. And then you're going to put the standard reflexive ending on it. If you don't know what reflexive verbs are, don't worry about that. It's coming. Again, subscribe to the channel because I've got a video coming out about that in the future here. But just know if you see ovát verbs that end in suya, you just throw the suya at the end there. All the verbs that we use today, plus a few extra, I'm going to put in the show notes down below so you can copy and paste them into whatever steady aid you're using. And if you have questions about anything I've talked about, you don't get it or you don't understand, put those questions in the comment section down below and I'll respond and answer the questions that way. I hope that helped you a lot. Haha. Ну хорошо, это все. Спасибо и увидимся.